How's it going, everyone? Let's go ahead and jump into the week 2 start and sits, kicking off with the quarterback position. First up, we are going to start Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals. He gets a very weak Panthers team at home, and he showed much better chemistry with Marvin Harrison Jr. Next, Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. I expect this team to come out and make a statement win because they're still a very good team, and the Bears team looked very average last week. Next, we have Justin Herbert of the Chargers. He showed that he was still a top talent last week. He looked like the guy that was being drafted as a top 5 quarterback. So look for him to have a big week again against the Raiders. Your sits, we have Justin Fields of the New York Jets. I like him for the season, but I expect the Bills to come out and put a lot of pressure and get the W. Next, Patrick Mahomes. I know last week he popped off in the second half, but it is against the Eagles. I expect the Eagles to really pressure him and for Mahomes to have a below average game. Finally, Daniel Jones, Indianapolis Colts. It is Daniel Jones, guys. He did have a good week, but the Broncos have a great defense, and I expect for them to show you that he is still Daniel Jones.
Here are the fantasy football running backs who are going to go crazy in week 2. These guys need to be in your starting lineup. First off, we told you to play Travis Etienne last week, and we are suggesting to put him in your lineup again against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals defense did look slightly improved against the Browns in week 1, but they still allowed Dylan Sampson to have a top 10 fantasy game in his NFL debut. And the situation for Etienne just got a lot better this week as Tank Bigsby was jettisoned to Philadelphia. And this comes on the heels of a week 1 performance where Etienne had 19 touches for 156 total yards, and he certainly looks like he can be the running back 1 in a new look Liam Cohen offense. Next up, we are rolling with James Conner this week against Carolina. Carolina was the worst run defense in the NFL last season, and they looked bad again in week 1 as they were gashed by the Jaguars. Conner was just okay in week 1 against the Saints, totaling 44 yards on 16 touchdowns, but he did find the end zone and added 4 receptions. There's some concern that Trey Benson could take some usage away from him, but James Conner should still get all of the juiciest roles, including early down work, 2-minute drill, and red zone opportunities. And lastly, we are starting Omarion Hampton without fear against Vegas on Monday night. Hampton had an encouraging usage in week 1, seeing 80% of the carries and 80% of the snaps for the Chargers. He had a bit of a middling performance against the tough Chiefs run defense, totaling only 61 yards on 17 touches. But against Vegas, if he sees this kind of volume, he should do more with his opportunities, and I think he profiles as a mid running back 2 for week 2. And moving on to guys we are sitting for week 2, I have to start with Jaylen Warren. The Steelers' backfield is still a bit of a mystery after week 1, as Arthur Smith proved again that he is willing to use multiple backs and roll with the hot hand during a game, and he does not care about our fantasy teams. Kenneth Gainwell and rookie Caleb Johnson's roles could become more defined as the season rolls along as well, and Warren may be a touchdown-dependent flex moving forward. He's an emergency flex, but sit him if you have better options. And next, we are sitting Aaron Jones Sr. against the Falcons this week. At times last week, Jones looked like an afterthought and was certainly outperformed by Jordan Mason, who should prove to be the more effective runner as the year goes along. The Vikings look like they are trying to save Jones a little bit for the stretch run, and it was only a late touchdown reception that saved his week 1 performance. I think taking a wait-and-see approach on Jones is prudent if you have better options to flex. And finally, we are sitting Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker III against the Steelers in week 2. And look, the Steelers gave up a lot of rushing to the Jets in week 1, but they are generally a good run defense, and the split usage between Charbonnet and Walker in week 1 make them both unattractive options for week 2 until there is more clarity in this backfield.
These are my starts and sits for week 2 at wide receiver. First off, start Marvin Harrison. He looked good last week, and he gets a solid matchup versus Carolina. The Panthers played pretty well in pass protection, but I'm still confident rolling Harrison out there if I have him. Next, I'm starting Chris Olave. Olave saw 13 targets last week, and he should remain a true alpha number 1 receiver in this offense. The 49ers were good in pass protection last week, but they are absolutely battered on offense, which should give the Saints more opportunities to possess the ball and throw Olave's way. I'm also starting Travis Hunter versus the Bengals. Hunter saw 8 targets last week, and I imagine the Jaguars want to continue to try and get him involved. The Bengals played solid defense last week, but they still gave a lot of passing yards and a passing touchdown, so I like Hunter in this spot. In deeper leagues, I would start Keenan Allen, who saw 10 targets last week. The Raiders gave up the sixth most passing yards, and Allen should be heavily involved in this one. I especially like him as a wide receiver 3 or flex in PPR formats. This week, I am sitting Michael Pittman, who's coming off a huge game in week 1, but this week he has to face the Broncos defense, who allowed only 62 passing yards last week. This is a really bad matchup, and I would look to other options like Keenan Allen, Keon Coleman, or Hollywood Brown instead. I'm also sitting Jameson Williams, who gets a tough draw versus a Bears defense that is likely getting star cornerback Jalen Johnson back in this one. I think there are better options out there like Olave, Tedorora McMillan, and Calvin Ridley. And this week, I would also be cautious with Zay Flowers. I wouldn't sit him as he was the overall wide receiver 1 last week, but he's going against the Browns passing defense, which held the Bengals to under 100 total passing yards. This game also has the Ravens as heavy favorites, so game script could go against the passing game, and we could see a heavy dosage of the Ravens' rushing attack.
Okay, here is your starts and sits for the tight end position for week 2 of fantasy football. First up, we have Sam Laporta, Detroit Lions. He looked to be on the same page again this season with Jared Goff. He actually looks really good, and I expect that trend to continue against the Bears. Same reason why I highlighted Jared Goff. Next, Jake Ferguson, Dallas Cowboys. I expect Ferguson to be the number 2 wide receiver this week with the Giants having a very strong defensive line and Dak having to make a lot of very quick passes, which means a good day for CD and Ferguson. Your next start is going to be Mark Andrews of the Ravens. Cleveland has shown that they are vulnerable in the middle, and I expect Andrews and Lamar Jackson to make them pay in the middle of the field. Your sits, we have TJ Hawkinson of the Vikings. He struggled last week against the Lions, and it just seems him and JJ just aren't there yet. And I expect that to continue this week against an improved Falcons team. Onward, we have Tower Warren Colts. The sky looks great for him, and I do like him long term. But for the same reason with Daniel Jones, Denver just has a really tough defense, and I expect the rookie not to have a great game. Finally, Juwan Johnson, New Orleans Saints. He's shown throughout his career he is very boom or bust, and I think Spencer Rattler is going to struggle this week in that San Francisco is going to not give him easy passes, and I expect them to keep a lid on Johnson this week.